Hiya Steve, great to meet up with you as always and do some work on your game. Quick recap on the key points that we covered. I've got some footage up here from your visit in October, and one of the things I'd like to highlight is how much better the right leg works in the backswing on this. One of the things that you do tend to do is hang on to the flex in that right knee at P4. So that's something that you may just want to readdress. You know what the drill is for that. Straighten the right leg, just make some backswings. You don't necessarily need to hit a lot of balls doing that. Just familiarise yourself with where the right leg needs to be at the top of the backswing. As we discussed yesterday, a lot of the donkey work now has been done, and this is a case of working things in that you can use on the golf course when you're playing, working in a manner that encourages the correct movements without bogging you down too much with the whys and hows of the way you're doing it. That's what you've done in the past, and that's what the recaps are online there for you to view if ever you do need that information. One of the things we talked about previously and obviously yesterday was your ability to control the finish, your ability to sequence the moves from the top. When this footage was taken, there was no real return to flexion. You can see the right hip was popping up from 4 to 5. Right leg's flexing a little bit. I think you've been working on that on this visit. Club, for someone who pushes up off the ground so quick, the club was also creeping out in front of the hands a little bit, P6. And we were using the extension through the hip to keep the club from travelling too far to the left and to shallow out the descent as we're coming into impact. So it was almost like a sort of a push up with the hips, a very early turn of the body, followed by the extension kicking in. Insufficient hip slide really to keep your head on the wall, and the hip slide not continuous enough. So we want to make sure that the hip slide we're able to offset the extension with the hip slide that we use. Excuse me. So the key feeling for you here yesterday was to max out the right tilt in the finish and stop quick. Now, if we max out the right tilt during the finish, so let's say at P9, we're maxing out the right tilt. That means that the hip slide has to have maxed out, because it's the sliding of the hips through impact that creates that right tilt that maintains our inclination to the ground. You can see the difference there in the right foot between let's bring this in, October and yesterday's session, and the fact that the right foot isn't popping up as much and is banking in slightly is suggesting that we're sliding the hips for longer, and that is starting to offset the extension. So there's too much tucking on the left and not enough sliding, and what we're trying to do is first of all get used to excuse me, arriving at a finish where the hip slide is maxed out. Once we do that, we become better at sequencing the moves required to arrive there. So we're going to use the finish or the exit as the destination. That's what we're focusing on, and let our body figure out how to slide the hips incrementally from P4. This is sort of midway through your session yesterday, and you can see that as we're coming into the golf ball now compared to October, the shaft is in a very different position in relation to the arms. The right heel isn't popping up quite as quick, so the extension now is being controlled. It's the linear movement of the hips that's keeping the club inside. Whereas here, the turning is pulling the club out, and then the extension is preventing that getting too excessive. And then as we sequence these through, see the right heel popping up more on the left hand image. Neck flexing forward on the left hand image, again to help the club sort of turn the corner and really just to keep you down, attempting to stay on the wall, whereas there's less of a flexing of the neck on the centre image through the ball. The head releasing better, the rate of closure on the club face is calming down, so the hips are turning, sliding and extending at a much better rate from P4 to P9. So keep working on work on that little bit of straightening of the right leg during the backswing, but then control the finish. And if you can become better at arriving at that finish or that exit position, maxing out the hip slide, that's going to control the extension, it's going to control the turn and just balance things up much better. So that was the key work that we did in regards to your full swing. In regards to the pitching, we were getting a little bit edgy with the pitch shots, and one of the reasons was this was the better one of the two. The left shoulder was turning too level, so we asked you to make a backswing with no turn. And the arc of the swing, like we see there, is just getting a little bit too short. So we're asking you to make a slightly longer arc, not a long arc, but just less of an exaggerated short arc when we hit this pitch shot. So we've got left shoulder working down rather than level, which was moving you off the golf ball. So that's the feeling on this. So we're nice and stable. On the one that we'd filmed initially, we had a big move off the golf ball. Now the feeling is to have a slightly longer arc, and that's much more. If you take a little look at your previous recap, that's a much better pitching action. Left shoulder not working as level, shift to the left, not as exaggerated. Much more balanced looking pitching technique. Left shoulder working down rather than level, shift to the left, not as exaggerated. Great work. Look forward to working with you in the coming season, and I will be forwarding some dates for your next session over the next 24 hours or so. Well done.